Like and subscribe for daily videos. Surgeons of Reddit, what has been your biggest oh shit moment? This one's from my dad. We were putting up a central line for a drip with an 18G needle, 1.2 mm, relatively big compared to most needles, in the patient's external jugular, and all of a sudden the needle went right into the jugular. We all started panicking because usually with a drip the needle is meant to come out and only the plastic remains, but now we had lost the needle inside this guy's jugular. Before we could even fish it out, it was gone. I looked at the fellow surgeons and nurses, and before we could do anything we rushed him right into theater. After a few minutes we fished the needle out near his subclavian vein, closer towards the shoulder, and we breathed a sigh of relief. I was a junior doctor working in neurosurgery back in 2008 when one of the senior registrars, I suppose the equivalent is chief resident in the USA, told me his most unfortunate moment. In order to have a patient's head stabilized for surgery, he was using a frame that had a set of 3 spikes that held the head in place. Due to the angle he needed to approach from, this required the patient to be face down. As he was placing the head of the anesthetized patient onto the frame, the head slipped and his eye landed onto the spike, perforating the eyeball. Panicking and thinking that his career was now over, he then, rather bizarrely, started poking at the eyeball trying to work out what was what until the anesthetist told him to stop. They then called the ophthalmologist, who came to tidy up what was now a completely ruined eye. After the surgery, terrified, he went to explain to the patient what had happened. Understandably fearing the worst, anger, distress and tears, received the response of, "That's okay, I was blind in that eye anyway." Luckiest bastard ever. TLDR, surgeon perforates patient's eye by mistake. Patient doesn't care. Veterinarian here. This happened in my 4th year of vet school. I watched a bull stomp his own intestines. A very valuable bull had an obstruction in his intestines that needed to be removed. People will only put the amount of money a food animal is worth into surgery to fix it, so we had to do this on the cheap. Full anesthesia on an animal that big is crazy expensive, so we did a standing surgery. What that means is the bull is put in a chute, numbed up really well, and other than light sedation they are totally awake and standing for surgery. So the surgeons make a 2 to 3 foot vertical incision in his right flank and start pulling out armfuls of intestines and handing them to me and the other vet student assistants. There's a sterile drape on the bull and we're all in full sterile gowns. The obstruction was pretty bad, so they had to remove a couple feet of damaged intestines and then sew the ends back together. There is a lot of blood. A lot. The bull is starting to get stressed, impatient, and weak from blood loss. It starts kicking at the chute and trying to move. It gets more sedatives and the surgeons try to sew faster. Everyone is sweating and there's a lot of swearing going on. The puddle of blood at our feet is getting bigger. The bull does a side shuffle and the intestines being held by another student are trapped between the bull's ribs and the metal bars of the chute. This is bad. Even a few seconds of this can do permanent damage. The bull is too heavy to just shove over, so they remove one of the side rails of the chute to free the intestines. The bull is getting really pissed off and now is trying to lunge from side to side, and we are ordered to let go of the intestines we are holding to keep the bull from breaking our arms against the rails of the chute. The bull is really freaking out and manages to get partially and then completely out of the chute and starts running around the room, mooing and stomping and ripping huge chunks of intestines out of itself. Blood and guts are everywhere. Gallons of blood. Keep in mind this room is in a barn, and while the area around the chute was clean, the rest of the room is covered in hay and dirt. Some huge guys manage to subdue the bull and wrestle it to the ground, and they give it more sedatives and pain meds. My job was to sit on his shoulder, another bigger student is sitting on his head. Everything is a complete fucking fiasco at this point, and I just felt so terrible for the poor bull who was bellowing non-stop. They wash off his mangled intestines as best as they can, stitch the ends together, dump a shit ton of penicillin in his abdomen and close him up. The bull survived surgery and then was hospitalized and got tons of 4 antibiotics and fluids and care. Every day his temperature got higher until he finally died a week later from a massive infection in his abdomen. So that was awful. I have absolutely no idea what they told the owner. As far as I know, no one got sued. Edit. Thanks so much for the gold. I asked my grandfather, a surgeon of 30+ years, this exact question once. He told me a story about opening a patient up to fix something serious with his aorta. It's been 10 years since I heard the story, details a bit hazy. Anyway, he and the other surgeon, who happened to be my mom's godfather, opened the guy up for this dicey operation and found several significant tumors. Like, well shit. This guy has toast tumors. He said he'd never seen so much cancer. They went out to tell the family, went back in, and as they were trying to figure out what to do, the aorta dissected and he bled out with the two of them shouting and trying to clamp it. He said it was over in seconds. He felt bad, but the guy was facing a pretty painful death anyway. He figured that there was less suffering that way, but secretly I think he was upset that they couldn't save him. I was rounding a few months back and a guy gets wheeled into ICU smelling terrible. I walked over, and the dude had maybe the most macerated legs I have ever seen. There were things moving on the bed, and the suction container was full of maggots. Turns out dude had been weaving on the road, and when police pulled him over and opened the doors, maggots fell onto the road. He got taken to the ER, arrested, taken up to ICU and very rapidly debrided, then bilateral above knee amputated. He actually made it out of the hospital, but I cannot imagine waking up one day and having no legs. I really wish I knew where he was driving, though. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for daily videos.